The lobby gleamed like it had never known dust or doubt. Marble floors reflected the chandelier's soft gold light, and the air carried the faint scent of citrus cleaner mixed with expensive perfume. Behind the front desk, the manager stood perfectly pressed, her smile practiced and selective. When the poor couple stepped forward, that smile thinned almost instantly. Her eyes moved over them in a single, dismissive sweep, the scuffed boots, the sun-faded coat, the careful way the woman held her purse as if it contained her entire world. They waited patiently, as people who had learned long ago not to rush their turn. The old farmer removed his hat, smoothing its worn brim with calloused fingers. His wife stood close beside him, shoulders slightly hunched, already bracing for what she sensed was coming. The manager finally looked up, her expression cool. "Yes," she said, the word clipped and impatient. "We'd like a room for the night," the farmer said, voice low and polite. "If you have anything available." The manager tapped her keyboard without checking. "We do," she replied, then paused, eyes flicking back to their clothes. A small smirk tugged at her lips. She leaned forward just enough for her voice to carry. "Pay for the cheap room and leave," she said. "This isn't a shelter." A few heads turned. A couple by the sofa exchanged an awkward glance. Someone coughed. The farmer's wife felt heat rush to her face. She wanted to disappear into the floor, to apologize for existing in a place that clearly didn't want her. Her fingers tightened around her husband's sleeve. The farmer didn't flinch. He stood still, steady as an oak in a hard wind. Years of early mornings, failed harvests, and silent endurance had taught him patience. He met the manager's eyes, not with anger, but with a quiet, searching calm. For a moment, it was as if the noise of the lobby faded, leaving only the two of them. "We don't need charity," he said gently. "Just a room and a little respect." The manager scoffed, already reaching for a key. In her world, appearances were verdicts, and this one had been decided the moment they walked in. She slid the key toward them with 2 fingers, as if touching it too long might stain her. The farmer took it without complaint, but something unreadable flickered behind his eyes, an understanding that this moment, small as it seemed, would not be forgotten. The elevator doors closed with a dull metallic sigh, sealing the couple inside a small box of mirrors and silence. The farmer pressed the button for the lower floor, the one the manager had chosen without asking. His wife stared at their reflections, at the lines on her face that years of worry and work had etched deep. "Maybe we should go somewhere else," she whispered, her voice trembling with embarrassment rather than fear. "We don't belong here." He shook his head slowly. "We belong wherever we stand," he said, calm and certain. "People don't get to decide our worth." The elevator hummed, descending, each floor passing like a quiet judgment. When the doors opened, the hallway was dimmer, the carpet thinner, the walls bare where artwork had been replaced by scuffed paint. It was clear this part of the hotel was meant to be unseen. Inside the room, the air smelled faintly of damp linen and old furniture. A single lamp buzzed when the farmer turned it on. The bedspread was clean but faded, its pattern worn smooth by countless nights of people who came and left unnoticed. The farmer's wife set her purse down carefully, as if afraid of disturbing the fragile order of the space. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded. "I hate how she looked at us," she said softly. "Like we were a problem." The farmer removed his coat and hung it neatly, taking his time. "That look," he said, "comes from forgetting where you came from." He walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. From here, the hotel's grand entrance was invisible, hidden behind brick and shadow. Only the service alley showed, with trash bins lined like soldiers and a flickering light overhead. He nodded to himself, as if confirming something he already knew. There was a knock at the door. A young bellboy stood there, eyes nervous, holding an extra towel. "They told me to bring this," he said quickly, avoiding eye contact. The farmer smiled at him, thanked him kindly, and slipped him a small bill. The boy's shoulders relaxed, surprised by the courtesy. "Have a good night," he murmured before hurrying away. The farmer closed the door and reached into his coat pocket, touching the envelope hidden there. Thick papers, old signatures, promises written in ink that time had not erased. His wife watched him, puzzled. "What is it?" she asked. He met her gaze, his expression gentle but resolute. "Just something that reminds people," he said, "that land remembers who truly owns it." The next morning, the farmer returned to the lobby, not in haste, not with anger, but with quiet purpose. The manager was busy arranging brochures, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. She barely looked up when he approached, until he placed the envelope squarely on the counter. It was heavy, substantial, and the kind of weight that demanded attention. "What's this?" she asked, her voice tight, curiosity mixing with irritation. She lifted it, feeling the bulk of the papers inside. The farmer's calm gaze never wavered. "Payment," he said simply. "For the land behind this hotel." Her brow furrowed, confusion and disbelief flickering across her face. "Land," she repeated, incredulous. "Yes," the farmer replied. "My father sold it decades ago with a clause. If the land was ever mismanaged or the property ran into dishonor, ownership would revert to our family. That clause has now been activated." He spoke slowly, giving her time to grasp the implications. The manager's hands shook slightly, the envelope slipping in her grip. You can't," she began, but the words faltered. The lobby, once filled with chatter and polite footsteps, grew silent. Guests paused, noticing the sudden tension. A couple at the far end of the room froze mid-conversation, sensing something monumental unfolding. The farmer placed a gentle hand on the counter. "I didn't come here to argue or embarrass anyone," he said. "But respect, like land, has value. Neglect it, and there are consequences you cannot ignore." His tone was calm, almost kind, but beneath it was the quiet authority of someone who had seen life in seasons, storms, and harvests. The manager swallowed hard, realization dawning like cold sunlight. She had mocked them the day before, dismissed their presence, and now found herself powerless before a law written years ago and a man she had underestimated. The weight of the envelope was not just paper, it carried decades of foresight, integrity, and quiet strength. Guests whispered behind their hands, some recording with their phones, capturing the humiliation turned triumph. The manager's face paled, her pride dissolving under the truth she could not escape. She looked at the farmer, searching for some leniency, but all he offered was a calm, unwavering gaze. Finally, he nodded once. "Keep the cheap room," he said, voice soft. "We won't need it." And with that, he turned, taking his wife's hand, leaving behind a stunned manager and a hotel about to wake up to a reckoning it had never expected. The farmer and his wife stepped out of the hotel into the crisp morning air, the sun just beginning to cast long shadows across the street. The city felt different, somehow, quieter, almost reverent, as if it had paused to watch the old farmer reclaim what was rightfully his. His wife tightened her grip on his hand, eyes wide with a mix of awe and curiosity. "Why didn't you tell her the truth earlier?" she asked softly. He chuckled, a low, warm sound that seemed to carry the weight of years. "Because respect should not depend on wealth," he said. "People show who they are long before they know who you are." His voice held the calm conviction of someone who had tilled fields, repaired fences, and faced storms without complaint. He had learned that patience and quiet dignity could be more powerful than anger or loud words. Meanwhile, inside the hotel, the manager was on the phone, her voice trembling despite her attempts at control. Lawyers, property papers, and emergency meetings were being arranged, all triggered by the farmer's envelope. Staff moved hurriedly, whispering in corners, unsure how to navigate the sudden shift in power. The lobby, once the domain of polished surfaces and forced smiles, now hummed with a tension that could be felt even on the other side of the street. The couple walked slowly, savoring the morning air. Birds chirped in the nearby trees, the city noises distant and unimportant. "Do you think they'll understand?" his wife asked, glancing back at the grand building. "They will," he replied gently. "Not all at once, perhaps. Some may never fully grasp it. But truth has a way of reaching even those who try to ignore it. And lessons last longer than insults." As they moved further down the street, the old farmer allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. It wasn't pride he felt, not in the boastful sense, but a quiet sense of justice restored. He had not only defended his family's legacy but reminded the world that dignity and respect were earned, not bought. Behind them, the hotel buzzed with turmoil, and somewhere deep in its heart, the manager realized the cost of arrogance. Outside, the farmer and his wife disappeared around the corner, leaving only footprints on the pavement and a story that would be remembered long after the shiny surfaces of the lobby had faded. It was a victory of patience over pride, humility over arrogance, a reminder that sometimes the quietest people wield the loudest power.